Hello everyone, my name is Mayank Pujara. Today we are going to cover debugging Dynamics 365 plugin or Dataverse plugin. So we'll create so today's agenda is we'll create a sample plugin, we'll register that plugin and we'll try to debug that using plugin profiler. So we'll go step by step to see how we are going to debug the Dynamics 365 plugin. Okay, let's straight away jump to the demo then. So just going to create a new. I'm using 2017, but you could use any Visual Studio 2019 or 2015 as well for this. We're just going to create a new project. We'll be creating a console library project, as that's the one that plugin assembly for Dataverse or Dynamics requires. Let's call it account post. Again, and we'll use .NET Framework 4.6.2, so that's fine. Let's create it. So our idea is to create a very basic plugin, so which when the account gets created, it will try and create a note or create a task, any record basically, and we'll try to, so we'll just say account. Yeah, so that should rename my class as well. Now to talk to CRM, we'll just need some packages, so we'll just install that. So if I go and find Microsoft.core SDK, sorry, CRM SDK, and install the core assemblies, the latest version. Okay, so what we just need is our class needs to derive from iPlugin interface. Yeah, so now it will ask that we need to implement the execute method. So we'll just implement that. Let's quickly get eye tracing services out of this. So we say service provider get service type of eye tracing service. So this will give us the tracing service which we can use to log details which is available. See how it works, and we'll also get my plugin context as well. Similar way, it's service provider get service type of Okay, so that's got created. Now what we need is, in order to save time, I only got the code copied, so I will just quickly copy it from one of the windows so we don't have to spend too much time. This one. Okay, so fairly simple code it has got. So we are just getting the input parameters saying whether the target is entity or not, and we are checking if the target is not entity account, then we are returning and no further process. We'll create a test note against that contact record. We could just put account name here as well if we need. So target will have name, and we'll just close the Magda. We format the class. So now if you look at the code again, pretty simple plugin. We are just checking the account, and if this is running for account, then we'll create a note against that account. Now we just compile this to see if it's compiling. Okay, so before putting this into Dynamics or Dataverse, one thing we need to do is make sure this is signed. So for that, I'm just going to go to the signing and create a temporary key. I'll just create a key because it's a demo, so don't need a password for the time being. And I'll rebuild this. And next step is we need to register using plugin registration tool. So I got this plugin registration tool open here. So if you don't have this tool, you can download it from Microsoft location using PowerShell or NuGet location. I'll provide a link to how to download those tools as well. When you download using PowerShell, it will download it in particular folder that you selected for your uh, so for example, I downloaded in dev tools and tools. So this is where the plugin registration tool comes. I'll provide a link on how to download that as a part of this video. Now we got the plugin registration tool. So what I'm going to do is register this assembly and select the account post create, the one that we just created. I'm using the debug one because we are doing debug. If you're releasing it to production or something, you register using the register option. So now that's been selected. I'm just going to say register this plugin. Now the assembly is there in the database, but I need to tell that what particular step, what particular event it will fire. So to create that, I will create a sample step to say when account got created, and after the account, so it's a post stage, account got created, we will run this plugin. Okay, so that's been registered. Let's see it's working in our Dynamics. So I created a simple app for that. It's located here. So I'll create a new account. So I'll just say more test one, save. Yeah, so that has fired and it's created in this note as you can see. So it says create a note from inside plugin from account demo test one. So this is the code that we written where we put the comments. Now let's assume that there is some error or something, some error command in your code and you want to debug it. So to debug it, first thing you need is you need to make sure that the profiler is installed on your organization or environment. So I'm just going to install it. It takes few minutes to install the profiler. So once it's installed, you could redo the action, and that will create the profile events which you could use in your code to debug. That can also take any configurations that you can pass as a part of steps that we see. So while this is installing, let's quickly go through the code again. So we are getting the tracing services, we are getting the context from the service provider. Then we're checking the input parameter, what's coming from the dynamics or Dataverse, and whether that's has got some target. And if the target is there, then it will create. We are checking whether it's account or not. If it's not account, then don't do any more processing. If it's account, then we'll create a new note. Annotation is the entity name in the Dataverse for the note. We are just putting some subject, some text, and attaching that note to our target, which is the account in our case. And then we are getting the organization service from the service factory. So we are getting organization service factory, and then we are creating organization service, which will create a link to our Dynamics environment. I am passing the current user ID, but if you want to run this as admin, you could pass that as null as well. Uh, And finally, we are putting some tracing trace. I'll show you how they look when we do the debugging and creating those that record. So that will create a new node record. If you are doing update, then there is update command as well. If there is any failure, I'm logging the exception and putting the details in the trace again. So let's see if this got installed. Yeah, so it's installed successfully. So to do a debug, what I need to do is just say start profiling. So that will start capturing event. It gives you the persistent key and it tells you whether you want to include the secure configurations or not. I'll just use the default option for this demo. And now what I need to do is just perform that action that my plugin can fire. So I'll create a new account again. And we are going to call it demo test 2. I'm going to save this. And as you can see, it's created a note, but what we are going to do now is stop the profiling. So once it's stopped, you could just say debug. And in here, when you select the debug, you could select the record that has been just profiled. If you did multiple actions, it will show you all the profiles that's appear during that time. Because I done only one, it's showing me one. So you select that, you select the location of the DLL. So in our case, it's account post create, and it will show you the class that you want to debug. So another thing to do is make sure you go to the Visual Studio and attach debugger to the plugin registration process. So I'm just going to find the plugin registration process and select this. And I'm just going to say start the execution. So when I say that, it should hit my breakpoint in the Visual Studio. As you can see, it's hitting the breakpoint. So we could go step by step and look at what's going at each step. As you can see, it's getting the input parameter. There is a target. We could look at how many values are there, what's the value, its entity, and we could look at what's the logical name, what's the attribute that's coming through. As you can see, we are using name, so that's the name property. So you could see all the properties that are coming through and then debug one by one and process this up to end. So if I if I continue doing the debug, you could see it processing one by one. If there's any failure, you could look at it. What's the failure? What's the property that's passing through? And that's finished the debugging basically. And all the tracing message that we've put in appears here. So you could see it in the profiler as well, that we are starting running the plugin. We have started creating a new node. We completed the new node. All this tracing appears here. So that's the basic 101 Dynamics 365, creating a basic plugin and debugging those plugin if there is any issue that using plugin profiler. So let's go back to the slide and just do a quick recap. So we created a new plugin here, registered the new plugin using plugin registration tool, and we use a plugin profiler to debug the plugin. Thank you very much for listening. If you got any questions, please put them in the comments in the video. Thank you. Bye.